The stars looked cold from the observation deck of the Imperial flagship. Empress Yuna stood alone, her tall figure casting a long shadow across the polished floor. Her skin was dark like volcanic glass, and her eyes glowed with a soft golden light. She was Valorian, a member of the most powerful warrior species in the known galaxy. But tonight, she was not thinking about war or power. She was thinking about her husband. 3 years had passed since she married a human named Teho. 3 years of whispers in the court. 3 years of watching her generals hide their smiles when he walked into a room. 3 years of loving a man that everyone believed was beneath her. Yuna remembered the first time she saw him. It was on a world called Kesara, a neutral planet where species from across the galaxy came to talk instead of fight. She had gone there to sign a trade agreement with the Rothani Federation. Teho was there as a translator, a small human man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Humans were not impressive creatures. They stood barely 6 feet tall at their best. They had no claws, no fangs, no natural armor. They could not read minds, or control fire, or survive in the vacuum of space. In a galaxy full of powerful beings, humans were considered survivors at best, and pests at worst. Most species tolerated humans because they were useful. They could learn languages quickly. They could adapt to different environments. They were good at small tasks that larger species found boring, but no one respected them. No one feared them. Yuna had felt the same way at first. When she arrived on Kesara, she barely noticed the human translator standing in the corner of the conference room. He was just another small creature in a galaxy full of small creatures. Then the assassins came. They burst through the windows during the second day of negotiations. Rothani extremists who believed the trade agreement would weaken their species. They carried plasma weapons and neural disruptors, and they moved with the speed of trained killers. Yuna was a warrior. She had fought in dozens of battles. But that day, surrounded by chaos and screaming, with her guards falling around her, she froze. For one terrible moment, the Empress of the Valorian Dominion did not know what to do. Then a hand grabbed hers. A small, warm, human hand. "This way," Teho said. His voice was calm, like they were taking a walk in a garden instead of running from death. "There is a service tunnel behind the third panel on the left wall. Stay low. Move when I move. Thanks for watching." She followed him. She did not know why. Perhaps it was the certainty in his voice. Perhaps it was the way his eyes seemed to see everything at once. Perhaps she was simply desperate. They moved through the chaos like water through rocks. Teho never ran. He walked with purpose, changing direction just before danger appeared. Twice, Yuna saw assassins round corners only to find empty hallways because Teho had pulled her into shadows seconds earlier. When they finally reached safety, Yuna looked at the small human who had saved her life. He was not breathing hard. He was not shaking with fear. He simply smiled and asked if she was hurt. "How did you know?" she asked. "How did you know where to go?" Teho shrugged. "I pay attention. Most people do not. They see what they expect to see. I try to see what is actually there." That was the moment Yuna fell in love. Not with his appearance or his strength, because he had neither by Valorian standards. She fell in love with his mind, with his calmness, with the way he made her feel safe. When everything around her was falling apart, their marriage happened 6 months later. It was supposed to be political. The Valorian Dominion wanted better relations with Earth. And what better symbol than an imperial marriage? But Yuna knew the truth in her heart. She wanted him. She needed him. The court did not understand. Her advisors begged her to reconsider. Her generals laughed behind their hands. They called Teho her pet, her exotic toy, her charity project. Some said worse things when they thought she could not hear. Teho never complained. He bore their insults with patience that seemed endless. He spent his days in the palace library, reading about Valorian history. He learned to cook traditional dishes from her homeworld, though his versions always had a strange human twist. He built a small garden in their private quarters, growing flowers from earth that bloomed in colors Yuna had never seen. He was kind, He was gentle. He was everything a warrior species like the Valorians did not value, and Yuna loved him more with each passing day. But sometimes, in her darkest moments, she wondered if she had made a mistake. Not because she did not love him, but because she feared for him. The galaxy was dangerous. Her position made her a target, and Tejo was soft. He was fragile. He was human. She had sworn to protect him. She had assigned guards to watch him at all times. She had made it clear that anyone who harmed her husband would face her personal wrath. But she could not be everywhere. She could not stop every threat. Tonight, standing at the observation deck, Yuna watched the stars and worried. Reports had come in that morning. Strange signals from the edge of Valorian space. Ships disappearing without a trace. Colonies going silent. Something was coming. She could feel it in her bones. Behind her, the door opened. She did not need to turn around to know who it was. She could smell the earth flowers he had been tending. She could hear his light footsteps, so different from the heavy boots of Valorian soldiers. Tejo stood beside her and looked at the stars. He did not speak. He simply stood with her in comfortable silence, his presence warm and steady. "Something is wrong," Yuna finally said. "I can feel it." Tejo nodded slowly. "I know. I have been reading the reports. You should not worry yourself with military matters," she said. "That is my burden." He smiled, that gentle smile she loved so much. "Your burdens are my burdens. That is what marriage means." Yuna looked at her husband, at his small human body, at his soft human hands, at his kind human eyes. She loved him. She would die to protect him. She did not know that soon, everything she believed about him would shatter like glass. She did not know that the small, gentle man beside her was hiding something vast and terrifying. She did not know that the human she married was not what he seemed. But she would learn. The galaxy would learn, and nothing would ever be the same. The warning came at midnight. Every screen in the Imperial Palace turned red. Every alarm began to scream. Soldiers ran through hallways with weapons drawn, not knowing what they were preparing to fight. Yuna was in the war room within minutes. Her generals were already there, their faces pale with fear. She had never seen Valorian warriors look afraid before. Her people were born for battle. They trained from childhood to face death without flinching. But tonight, they looked like children who had seen a monster under their bed. "Show me," Yuna commanded. The main screen flickered to life. It showed a map of Valorian space, with 3 colonies marked in black. Black meant gone. Black meant dead. "The colonies of Veros, Kinthar, and Morath," said General Bora, her oldest military advisor. His voice was shaking. "All 3 went dark within 6 hours. No distress signals, no survivors, just silence." "Who attacked them?" Yuna asked. No one answered at first. Then Bora pressed a button, and the screen changed to show footage from a military probe. What Yuna saw made her blood turn cold. Ships. Hundreds of ships. But they were not made of metal and fire like normal vessels. They were alive. They were made of flesh and bone and things that should not exist. They moved through space like sea creatures swimming through dark water. They had no windows, no engines, no weapons that she could see. But wherever they went, death followed. "The swarm," Bora whispered. The old texts called them the swarm. Yuna knew the stories. Every species in the galaxy knew the stories. 10,000 years ago, before the Valorians built their empire, before humans left their planet, a great darkness swept across the stars. It consumed entire civilizations. It ate worlds and grew stronger with each meal. Then, suddenly, it vanished, retreated into the space between galaxies. Fell asleep. The swarm had awakened. "How is this possible?" asked General Hana, Yuna's cousin. She was younger than the other generals, but she was brilliant and fierce. "The swarm is supposed to be extinct. The old texts say the first ones destroyed them." "The first ones are dead," Bora replied, "and clearly, the swarm is not." The room fell into chaos. Generals shouted at each other. Some wanted to attack immediately. Others wanted to evacuate the border colonies. A few suggested surrender, offering tribute worlds to slow the enemy's advance. Yuna raised her hand, and silence fell. "We do not surrender," she said. Her voice was hard as stone. "We are Valorians. We fight." She began giving orders. Fleets would be mobilized, defenses would be strengthened. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon would be prepared for war. As she spoke, she noticed a figure standing quietly in the corner of the room. Taeho. He must have followed her when the alarms went off. He stood with his hands behind his back, watching the screens with those strange, dark eyes. General Hana noticed him too, her face twisted with disgust. "Empress," Hana said loudly. "Perhaps your husband should return to his garden. War councils are no place for humans." Several generals nodded in agreement. A few laughed quietly. Yuna felt anger rise in her chest. But before she could speak, Taeho stepped forward. "General Hana," he said calmly, "how many ships did the swarm use to destroy those 3 colonies?" Hana looked annoyed at being addressed by a human. "Our probes counted over 300 organic vessels." Quote, "And how many people lived in those colonies?" "Approximately 12 million. Taeho nodded slowly. 300 ships. 12 million lives. 6 hours. He looked at the screen, showing the black marks where colonies used to be. "They are not hunting, they are feeding. Each ship grows larger with each kill. By the time they reach the inner systems, those 300 ships could be 3,000. The room went silent. Every general stared at the small human who had just calculated their doom so calmly. "How do you know this?" Bora asked. "I read," Taeho said simply. "The old texts from a dozen species. They all describe the same pattern. The swarm does not conquer. It consumes. And it grows faster than any army can fight." Hana stepped toward him, her tall body towering over his small frame. "So what do you suggest, human? That we give up? That we let them eat us?" Taeho met her eyes without flinching. Yuna noticed something strange in that moment. Her husband did not look afraid. He did not even look worried. He looked like a man studying a puzzle, searching for the solution. "I suggest," Taeho said quietly, "that you stop trying to fight them like warriors. They have faced warriors before. They evolved to defeat warriors. You need a different approach." "And what approach would that be?" Hana demanded. Taeho smiled. It was not his usual gentle smile. It was something else. Something that made Yuna's heart beat faster for reasons she did not understand. "I am still thinking about that," he said. "Give me time." Hana laughed cruelly. "Time? The swarm is coming, human. What will you do? Translate them to death? Cook them a nice meal? Plant flowers on their graves?" The other generals laughed too. Taeho said nothing. He simply nodded politely and stepped back into the corner. Later that night, Yuna found him in their quarters. He was sitting by the window, staring at the stars. His dinner sat untouched on the table. His flowers drooped slightly, as if sensing their master's troubled thoughts. "I am sorry for how they treated you," Yuna said. "Hana had no right to speak to you that way." Taeho shook his head. "She spoke the truth. I am just a human. I have no claws, no armor, no powers. What can I possibly offer in a war against monsters?" Yuna sat beside him and took his hand. "You saved my life on Kessara. You see things others miss. That has value." "Perhaps," he said, but he did not sound convinced. They sat together in silence, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, in the darkness between suns, the swarm was moving closer, growing stronger, eating everything in its path. Yuna tightened her grip on her husband's hand. She did not know how to stop the coming storm. She did not know if her empire would survive. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would protect Taeho, no matter what happened, no matter what it cost. She did not notice the strange light in his eyes as he watched the stars. She did not see his fingers tapping against his leg in complex patterns, as if counting something only he could see. She did not know that inside his human mind, Calculations were running at speeds no Valorian could match. The man she loved was preparing for war, but not the kind of war anyone expected. Fortress Chiron was the pride of the Valorian Dominion. It was not just a military base. It was a symbol. Built into the heart of a dead moon, it held weapons capable of destroying entire fleets. 200 warships guarded it at all times. 50,000 soldiers lived within its walls. For 300 years, no enemy had ever breached its defenses. The swarm destroyed it in 4 hours. Yuna watched the battle from her throne room, surrounded by her generals and advisors. The footage came from surveillance drones that circled the fight like metal birds watching a massacre. At first, the Valorian defenders fought bravely. Their ships launched missiles that exploded against the organic vessels of the swarm. Plasma cannons burned holes through living flesh. Soldiers in combat armor met the enemy on the surface of the moon, their war cries echoing through their helmets. But the swarm did not fight like normal enemies. When a Valorian missile struck a bioship, the wound healed within seconds. When a plasma cannon killed one creature, 2 more emerged from its corpse. The organic vessels did not shoot back with weapons. They simply moved forward and swallowed everything in their path. Yuna watched a Valorian cruiser, 800 meters long, get pulled into the mouth of a swarm vessel. She watched the bioship grow larger as it digested the metal and the lives inside. She watched the creature's skin ripple with new armor, new weapons, new strength stolen from its victims. "They are learning," Tejo said quietly. He stood beside her, watching the same footage. His face was blank, but his eyes moved constantly, tracking details that others missed. "What do you mean?" Yuna asked. "Watch the patterns," he said. At the start of the battle, the swarm attacked randomly. Now look at them. They are targeting the command ships first. They are avoiding the areas with the heaviest fire. They are adapting. General Bora nodded grimly. He is right. The swarm has a hive mind. They share information instantly. Every tactic we use, they learn to counter within minutes. On the screen, Fortress Chiron's main reactor exploded. The surveillance drones caught the final moments. Thousands of Valorian soldiers running through collapsing hallways. Their screams cut short as the darkness consumed them. Then there was nothing but silence, and the cold, empty void where a fortress used to be. No one spoke for a long time. Yuna felt something she had rarely experienced in her life. Despair. Her people were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. They had conquered dozens of species. They had built an empire that spanned 1,000 worlds, and they were losing. "What are our options?" she finally asked. General Hana stepped forward. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. "We have 3 main battle groups remaining. Approximately 500 ships total. We can make a stand at the Velen system, defend the homeworld with everything we have. And if we lose that battle?" Hana did not answer. She did not need to. Everyone knew what would happen if the homeworld fell. The Valorian species would cease to exist. "There is another option," said an old admiral named Duri. He looked like he had aged 10 years in the past hour. "We could retreat, evacuate the core worlds, flee to the outer territories, and hope the swarm does not follow." "Run away," Hana said with disgust. "We are Valorians. We do not run. We also do not win by dying with honor," Duri replied. "A living coward can fight again. A dead hero cannot." The argument grew heated. Generals shouted at each other. Some demanded attack. Some demanded retreat. A few suggested reaching out to other species for help. Though everyone knew that no one would come, the galaxy was full of peoples who hated the Valorians. They would be happy to watch the Dominion burn. Through it all, Tejo remained silent. He watched the screens showing the swarm's advance. He studied the movement patterns, the growth rates, the feeding behaviors. His lips moved slightly, as if he was talking to himself. Yuna noticed and leaned close to him. "What are you thinking?" "I am thinking that General Hana is right," he said softly. "You cannot win this war by fighting harder. The swarm is designed to defeat strength with greater strength. The more you attack, the stronger they become. Then what should we do? Teho turned to look at her. There was something different in his eyes, something deeper than she had ever seen before. It was like looking into an ocean that had no bottom. You should let me help, he said. That night, Yuna could not sleep. She walked through the palace gardens, trying to clear her mind. The flowers Teho had planted glowed softly in the darkness, their earth colors strange and beautiful among the native plants. She found him there, standing alone among his creations. He was staring up at the stars, his small human body perfectly still. I need to tell you something, Yuna said. Something I have been afraid to say. He turned to face her. You are afraid you cannot protect me, she nodded. I am the empress of the most powerful empire in the galaxy, and I am losing. Soon, I may not be able to keep you safe. You should leave. Take a ship and return to Earth. The swarm may not reach that far. You could survive. Teho smiled. But it was not his usual gentle smile. This smile held something ancient and heavy, like a mountain that had watched civilizations rise and fall. Yuna, he said, do you know why humans have no natural weapons? No claws, no telepathy, no elemental powers? She shook her head. Because we did not need them, he said. We became something else instead. Something that every other species in the galaxy has tried very hard to ignore. He stepped closer to her. In the soft light of the garden, his dark eyes seemed to glow with an inner fire. I have been pretending, Yuna. For 3 years, I have been pretending to be weak, pretending to be harmless, pretending to be the small, gentle human that everyone expects. What do you mean? Her voice was barely a whisper. I mean that you married something far more dangerous than a Valorian warrior. He took her hand. His grip was still gentle, but she could feel something new in it, a strength that had nothing to do with muscles or bones. I think it is time I stopped hiding. I think it is time I showed you what a human can really do. Yuna stared at her husband. The man who cooked her breakfast. The man who tended flowers and read books. The man who made her laugh and held her when she cried. She did not know who he really was, but she was about to find out. Show me, she said, and the universe began to change. The War Council gathered the next morning at Teho's request. Every general, every admiral, every military leader in the Valorian Dominion filled the Great Hall. They came expecting another day of bad news. They came expecting to plan their final stand. They did not expect the human translator to address them. Teho stood at the center of the room, surrounded by warriors 3 times his size. He looked small and fragile among them, like a flower growing in a field of swords. But when he spoke, something had changed. His voice carried a weight that made even the proudest Valorians listen. I am going to tell you a secret, Teho said. A secret that humanity has kept for a very long time. And when I am done, you will understand why we hide our true nature from the galaxy. General Hana laughed. What secret could humans possibly have? You are the weakest species that ever achieved space travel. You have no natural weapons, no special abilities, nothing that makes you special. You survive because you are useful as servants. Nothing more. Nothing more. Teho smiled. It was a patient smile. The kind a teacher gives a student who has not understood the lesson. You are correct that humans have no claws, he said. No fangs, no natural armor, no telepathy, no control over elements. Every other intelligent species evolved some form of physical advantage. But humans evolved differently. He touched his temple. We evolved this. The human brain. The most adaptable, most flexible, most dangerous organ in the known universe. The generals exchanged confused looks. Every species had brains. Why would the human version be special? Let me explain, Teho continued. When other species face danger, their bodies react with fixed responses. A Valorian becomes stronger in battle because your genes tell your muscles to work harder. A Rothani becomes faster because your nervous system is designed for quick movement. These are powerful abilities, but they are limited. Your evolution gave you tools that cannot change. He began to pace slowly, his dark eyes moving across the room. Human evolution took a different path. Instead of giving us fixed tools, it gave us a brain that can rewrite itself. When humans face extreme stress, our neural pathways physically change. We do not just react to danger, we adapt to it. In real time, at the cellular level. That sounds like a fairy tale, Admiral Dury said. No brain can rewire itself that quickly. Most cannot, Tejo agreed. But some humans can. We call ourselves wardens. The word hung in the air like a promise of violence. Wardens are humans who have learned to unlock our species' hidden potential, Tejo explained. Under extreme pressure, we enter a state called the inheritance. Our minds accelerate beyond normal limits. We can process thousands of variables simultaneously. We can predict enemy movements before they happen. We can see patterns in chaos that others miss completely. He stopped pacing and faced the generals directly. I am a warden. I have been one since I was 17 years old. And I have been hiding my true nature since the day I arrived in Valorian space. The room exploded with questions and shouts. Hana pushed forward, her face twisted with anger. You expect us to believe this? She demanded. You have been in our empire for years. You have attended hundreds of meetings, watched our military operations, learned our secrets. And now you claim to be some kind of super soldier? You are a spy. I am not a spy, Tejo said calmly. I am a guardian. Earth placed wardens throughout the galaxy to watch for threats that could endanger all species. The swarm is exactly such a threat. We have been preparing for their return for centuries. Preparing? General Bora asked. How? By watching. By learning. By understanding. Tejo walked to the main display screen and began inputting commands. The swarm is a hive mind. They share one consciousness across millions of bodies. This makes them powerful, but it also makes them predictable. They think as one, which means they have only one way of thinking. The screen changed to show complex patterns of light. These are the swarm's movement patterns over the past week. Every attack, every formation, every feeding behavior. Do you see the repetitions? The generals stared at the screen. Most saw nothing but chaos. But Yuna, watching from her throne, began to notice something. Tiny patterns. Repeated movements. Like a heartbeat hidden in noise. They are following a rhythm, she said slowly. Tejo nodded. Exactly. The swarm operates on cycles, just like any living organism. They have periods of activity and rest. They have preferred attack formations. They have behaviors that repeat because their hive mind cannot think of new approaches. So what? Hana said. Even if we know their patterns, they are still stronger than us. They still grow with every victory. Every one. Hana said one. Hana said one. That is because you have been fighting them as warriors, Tejo replied. You meet strength with strength, and they are designed to counter that. But the swarm has never encountered a species that fights like humans do. And how do humans fight? Admiral Dury asked. Tejo turned to face the old admiral. In that moment, his gentle appearance seemed to fall away like a mask. What remained was something cold and calculating. A predator that had been pretending to be prey. We do not overpower our enemies, he said. We break them. We find their weaknesses and exploit them without mercy. We attack their minds before their bodies. We make them afraid, make them confused, make them doubt everything they know. He looked around the room at the gathered warriors. Every species in the galaxy evolved to be dangerous. Humans evolved to defeat dangerous things, not through strength, but through cunning, through patience, through a willingness to do whatever it takes to survive. The room was silent. Even Hana had nothing to say. The swarm has consumed thousands of species, Tejo continued. Warrior species, telepathic species, species with powers you cannot imagine. They have never been defeated because every enemy has tried to fight them with brute force. He smiled again. And this time, there was no gentleness in it at all. We are going to show them something new. We are going to show them what it feels like to be hunted. Yuna stood from her throne and walked to stand beside her husband. She looked at him with new eyes, seeing for the first time the truth behind his peaceful face. You have been hiding this the entire time we have been married, she said. It was not a question. Yes, he admitted. Humanity has survived in a galaxy full of predators by appearing weak. We do not reveal our true nature unless we have no other choice. I am sorry for deceiving you. Yuna should have felt angry. She should have felt betrayed. But instead, she felt something else entirely. Hope. What do you need? She asked. A small fleet, Tejo said. Volunteers who are willing to follow unusual orders. And your trust. You have it, she said without hesitation. General Hana stepped forward. Empress, you cannot be serious. This human has admitted to lying to us for years. How can we trust anything he says? Yuna turned to face her cousin. Her golden eyes blazed with imperial authority. Because he is my husband, she said. Because he saved my life when no one else could. And because right now, he is the only one in this room who has offered a plan that does not end with our extinction. She looked back at Tejo, this stranger who had slept beside her for 3 years. This small, gentle human who was neither small nor gentle. Save my people, she said. Show them what humans can do. Tejo bowed his head slightly. When he raised it again, his eyes held the cold fire of a predator that had finally been unleashed. With pleasure, my empress. The hunt was about to begin. The task force was small by Valorian standards. 20 ships, crewed by volunteers who had nothing left to lose. Many of them had lost families to the swarm. All of them were willing to die for a chance at revenge. But Tejo had no intention of letting them die. The first rule of human warfare, he said, standing before his new crew on the bridge of their flagship, is that victory matters more than honor. We do not fight fair. We do not give our enemies a chance to respond. We strike from shadows, and we vanish before they know what happened. The Valorian soldiers looked uncomfortable. Their culture valued direct combat, 2 warriors facing each other with strength and skill. What Tejo described sounded like cowardice. I know what you are thinking, he continued. This is not how Valorians fight. This is not honorable. But honor is a luxury for those who are winning. Right now, your people are losing. If you want to save them, you must learn a new way. Yuna stood beside him, watching her soldiers wrestle with his words. She had insisted on joining the task force, despite Tejo's protests. If her husband was going into danger, she would face it with him. Their first mission was a test. Swarm scouts had been detected near the Kirin system, 3 small bioships searching for new feeding grounds. A traditional Valorian response would be to send a larger force to destroy them in open combat. Tejo had a different idea. The swarm communicates through biological signals, he explained, pulling up diagrams on the bridge display. Each ship acts like a nerve cell in a giant brain. When one detects danger, it sends a warning to the others. This makes them very hard to surprise. So how do we surprise them? Asked Captain Mireille, a young Valorian officer who had lost her entire family at Fortress Kirin. We do not surprise them, Tejo said. We confuse them. The task force entered the Kirin system broadcasting false signals on swarm communication frequencies. To the bioships, it appeared that dozens of swarm vessels were already in the system, all sending contradictory orders. Attack. Retreat. Hold position. Feed. Do not feed. The 3 scouts stopped moving. Their biological brains, designed to follow the commands of the hive mind, could not process the chaos. For 12 precious seconds, they simply floated in space, paralyzed by conflicting instructions. 12 seconds was enough. Tejo's ships struck from 3 different directions simultaneously. They did not aim for the bioship's main bodies, where the thick organic armor could absorb damage. They aimed for specific points that Tejo had identified through his analysis. the sensory organs that allowed the ships to see and communicate. Blinded and deafened, the swarm scouts could not call for help. They could not coordinate their defense. They thrashed in the darkness like wounded animals, and Teho's forces tore them apart piece by piece. The entire battle lasted less than a minute. On the bridge, the Valorian soldiers stared at the debris floating where 3 swarm vessels used to be. They had expected a hard fight. They had expected casualties. Instead, they had won without losing a single life. "How did you know their weak points?" Captain Mire asked. "I studied them," Teho said simply. "I read every report, analyzed every piece of data, looked for patterns that others missed. The swarm is ancient and powerful, but they are not creative. They use the same designs they have used for millions of years, because those designs have always worked. But no design is perfect. Every machine has flaws, and every organism has vulnerabilities." He turned to face his crew. "This is how humans fight. We watch. We learn. We find the crack in our enemy's armor, and we strike there again and again until they shatter." Over the following weeks, the task force launched dozens of attacks. They never engaged the swarm in open battle. Instead, they used tricks and traps, lies and deceptions. They baited swarm forces into asteroid fields where hidden mines waited. They broadcast fake distress signals from empty ships, drawing bioships into ambushes. They attacked supply lines and communication nodes, creating chaos in the hive mind's commands. The swarm began to slow its advance. Not because they had lost many ships, the task force was too small for that, but because they had become uncertain. The hive mind could not understand this new enemy. Every time it predicted what the humans would do, they did something else. Every trap it set was turned against it. Every strength became a weakness. Yuna watched her husband work during those weeks. She saw a side of him she had never imagined existed. He barely slept. His mind constantly processing information from dozens of sources. He moved pieces on the tactical display like a master playing a game that no one else could see. And when he spoke to the crew, his voice carried an authority that made even proud Valorian warriors obey without question. But in the quiet moments between battles, he was still Teho. Still the man who held her hand and asked about her day. Still the man who worried about his garden back home and wondered if the flowers were getting enough water. "How do you do it?" she asked him one night, as they floated in the darkness between stars. "How do you switch between being a gentle gardener and a ruthless strategist?" Teho was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was tired. "Being a warden is not about being 2 different people," he said. "It is about understanding that kindness and ruthlessness can exist in the same heart. I tend my garden because I love beautiful things. I destroy our enemies because I love the people I am protecting." He turned to look at her, his dark eyes soft. "Everything I do for those I care about. The strategy, the planning, the cold calculations, they all come from the same place as my love for you. I would burn galaxies to keep you safe, Yuna. I would become a monster if that was what it took." "That frightens me," she admitted. "It frightens me too," he said. "But fear does not stop humans. Nothing stops humans. That is what makes us so dangerous. I hope. Outside the window, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere out there, the main body of the swarm was waiting. Their attacks on scouts and supply lines had been successful, but they had not won the war. The hive mind was vast and ancient, and it was beginning to learn from its mistakes. Soon, they would have to strike at the heart of the enemy. Soon, they would have to face the thing that commanded all the others, the overmind. Teho stared at the stars, and Yuna knew he was already planning, already calculating, already searching for the weakness that would let a single small species defeat a galaxy-eating nightmare. "Can we win?" she asked. He did not answer for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was neither confident nor afraid. It was simply honest. "Humans have faced extinction before," he said. "Ice ages, plagues, wars that burned our world to ash. Every time, we survived. Every time, we came back stronger. The swarm has never faced anything like us. He took her hand and squeezed it gently. So yes, my love, we can win. But it will cost us everything we have. And when it is over, the galaxy will never look at humans the same way again. Yuna nodded. She understood what he was saying. Humans had hidden their true nature to survive in a galaxy full of predators. When this war was over, that secret would be gone. Every species would know what humanity was capable of. The prey would reveal itself as a predator, and nothing would ever be the same. The tide of war was changing. What had seemed like certain defeat now felt like a real battle. The swarm's advance had slowed to a crawl. Their supply lines were in chaos. Their scouts vanished into the darkness without sending word back to the hive. But Tejo knew it was not enough. We are annoying them, he told Yuna during a late-night strategy session. We are confusing them and slowing them down. But we are not winning. The overmind is too large, too ancient, too powerful to be defeated by 1,000 small cuts. We need to strike at the center. The center, Yuna repeated. You mean the overmind itself? Yes. Tejo pulled up a display showing the heart of the swarm fleet. Thousands of organic vessels surrounded a single massive creature, a bioship so large it could swallow moons. Everything the swarm does flows from the overmind. It is their brain, their soul, their god. If we destroy it, the entire hive will collapse into chaos. And how do we destroy something that size? It would take our entire remaining fleet, and even then we might fail. Tejo shook his head. We do not need to destroy it. We need to make it choose to leave. Before Yuna could ask what he meant, alarms began to ring throughout the ship. Communications officers shouted that they were receiving encrypted signals from deep space. Human signals, Tejo smiled. They are here. Over the next hour, ships began to emerge from hidden jump points throughout Valorian space. Small ships, fast and silent, designed for stealth rather than power. They flew in formations that no Valorian had ever seen, moving like packs of hunting animals rather than military fleets. The Wardens, Tejo explained. Every human agent hidden throughout the galaxy. Earth has called them home. Yuna watched the new arrivals with wonder and something close to fear. There were not many ships, perhaps 50 in total, but each one carried humans who had spent their lives hiding among other species, watching, learning, preparing for exactly this moment. More surprising was what came next. A message from Earth itself. The transmission showed a human woman standing on what appeared to be a military command center. Her hair was gray, her face lined with age, but her eyes burned with the same cold fire that Yuna had seen in Tejo. This is Admiral Sina of Earth Defense Command, the woman said. To all Warden assets in the field, the Council has authorized full disclosure. Operation Final Dawn is now active. May humanity's light shine in the darkness. The transmission ended, and Tejo turned to Yuna with an expression she had never seen on his face before. Pride. Not personal pride, but the pride of a people who had hidden for so long, and were finally ready to show what they could do. Earth has revealed its hidden fleet, he said. It is not large, but it is designed for one purpose: to end threats that could destroy all life in the galaxy. They have been preparing for the swarm for centuries. Centuries? Yuna asked. How is that possible? Humanity only achieved space travel a few hundred years ago. Tejo smiled sadly. That is what we wanted everyone to believe. The truth is that humans discovered the ruins of ancient civilizations long before we left our planet. We learned about the swarm, we learned about the first ones who fought them, and we decided to prepare in secret, building weapons and training warriors, while the rest of the galaxy thought we were primitive and weak. Yuna felt dizzy. Everything she thought she knew about humans was wrong. They were not survivors, clinging to the edges of a dangerous galaxy. They were guardians who had been waiting in the shadows, ready to emerge when they were needed most. The war council that followed was unlike any before. Valorian generals sat beside human wardens, sharing information and coordinating strategies. The old contempt was gone, replaced by grudging respect that grew stronger with each passing hour. The plan Tejo proposed was insane by any normal standard. A small strike team would penetrate the swarm's defenses and reach the overmind directly. Not to destroy it, but to communicate with it, to show it something that would make it choose to flee rather than continue fighting. That is suicide, General Hana said. But her voice lacked its old hostility. She had seen what Tejo could do. Even if you reach the overmind, it will consume you. It has absorbed billions of minds. What can you possibly show it that would make it afraid? Tejo. Are my noun. I will show it what humanity truly is, Tejo replied. The swarm has consumed species that were stronger than us, faster than us, more powerful in every measurable way. But they have never encountered a mind like a human mind. They do not understand us, and what they do not understand, they cannot predict. He looked around the room at the gathered warriors, human and Valorian alike. The overmind thinks it knows the limits of intelligence. It thinks it has seen everything the galaxy has to offer. I am going to prove it wrong. That night, Yuna found Tejo in his garden. The flowers had been watered by automatic systems while they were away. But some had wilted without his personal attention. He moved among them quietly, touching petals and speaking to them in a soft voice. You know I am coming with you, she said. He did not look up. Yuna, this mission is different from the others. We may not come back. I cannot ask you to risk yourself for a human cause. It is not a human cause anymore. She walked to stand beside him among the earth flowers. The swarm threatens everyone. And you are my husband. Where you go, I go. He finally looked at her. In his eyes, she saw fear. Not fear of death, but fear of losing her. The man I married, she said. Was he real? Was any of it real? Tejo took her hand and pressed it against his chest. Beneath her palm, she felt his heart beating. Strong. Steady. Human. The warden is a tool, he said. A weapon that humans created to protect what we love. But underneath the weapon, there is just a man. A man who tends gardens because he finds peace in growing things. A man who cooks terrible food because he likes to see his wife smile. A man who has loved you since the moment you took his hand on Kisara. He pulled her close. I hid my abilities from you. And I am sorry. But I never hid my heart. Everything I feel for you is true. Yuna leaned into him. She had married a translator. She had married a gardener. She had married a man who seemed soft and gentle in a universe of warriors. Now she knew the truth. She had married one of the most dangerous beings in the galaxy, and she loved him more for it. Tomorrow we go to war, she said. Tonight, let us pretend we are just two people who love each other. Tejo held her tighter. I can do that. Ah! Outside the window, the stars burned with cold fire. Somewhere in the darkness, the overmind waited. Ancient and hungry. Confident in its invincibility. It did not know what was coming. It did not know that a small human and his alien wife were about to teach it the meaning of fear. But it would learn. The entire galaxy would learn. Humanity was done hiding. The strike team was small. 12 humans. 8 Valorians. 1 ship. Designed for stealth rather than combat. They flew through the darkness toward the heart of the swarm, passing by bioships that floated in space like sleeping monsters. Tejo sat at the center of the ship, his eyes closed, his mind reaching outward through technology that linked him to his fellow wardens. They moved as one consciousness, 12 humans thinking with a single purpose. The inheritance had been activated, and their minds burned with cold calculation. Yuna watched him from across the cabin. He looked different now, sharper, more focused. The gentle husband she knew was still there, but he had been wrapped in layers of something harder, something forged by billions of years of human evolution. We are approaching the overmind, Captain Mireille reported. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly on the controls. Through the windows, they could see it. A living mountain of flesh and bone floating in the void. The Overmind was not just large. It was impossible. Its body stretched for thousands of kilometers, covered in eyes that watched everything and mouths that had swallowed civilizations. Tentacles the size of planets drifted lazily around it, and the space nearby warped with the weight of its presence. "That thing has lived for millions of years," General Hanna said quietly. She had insisted on joining the mission, determined to face humanity's test alongside them. "How can we hope to affect something that ancient?" "By showing it something it has never seen before," Tejo replied. His eyes were still closed, but his voice was clear. "The Overmind believes it understands all forms of intelligence. It has consumed so many minds that it thinks nothing can surprise it. That arrogance is its weakness." The ship continued forward, somehow ignored by the swarm defenders. The wardens were broadcasting signals that made them appear to be already consumed victims. Vessels carrying absorbed prey back to the hive. It was a dangerous trick, one that could fail at any moment, but it held. The bioships let them pass. The tentacles drifted away. And slowly, impossibly, they approached the Overmind's central mass. "There," Tejo said, pointing to a structure that looked like a crater in the creature's flesh. "That is a sensory node. If we can reach it, I can establish direct communication with the hive mind." "And then what?" Yuna asked. He finally opened his eyes and looked at her. "Then I show it who we really are." The ship landed inside the Overmind like a tiny insect on a giant's skin. The strike team emerged into a landscape of living tissue. Walls pulsed with heartbeats. The floor shifted and moved beneath their feet. The air smelled of decay and age, the breath of something that had eaten worlds. Swarm defenders emerged from the walls to meet them. Creatures that had once been warriors from a dozen different species, now twisted and absorbed into the hive. They attacked without warning, without mercy, without fear. The battle was chaos. Valorian warriors fought beside human wardens, each species using their own strengths. The Valorians provided raw power, their massive bodies crushing enemies and absorbing damage. The humans moved like ghosts, predicting attacks before they came, striking at weak points that no one else could see. Tejo moved through the violence like a dancer. His body was small and soft by Valorian standards, but his mind was a weapon beyond anything the swarm had encountered. He saw every attack coming. He calculated every enemy's movement. He found paths through impossible situations and led his team forward, step by step. But the defenders were endless. For every creature that fell, 2 more emerged from the walls. The team was being overwhelmed. "We need to move faster," Captain Mireille shouted, her armor scorched and damaged. "There are too many of them." "Then we clear the way," Yuna said. She stepped forward, raising her arms. Her eyes blazed with golden fire as she called upon the ancient power of her bloodline. She was not just an empress, she was the daughter of a dynasty that had conquered stars, and she had strength that she had never fully unleashed. "Go," she said to Tejo. "I will hold them." "Yuna, go." She turned to face the incoming wave of enemies, her body burning with royal fire. "You are the weapon, I am the shield. Do what you came here to do." Tejo looked at his wife for a long moment. She stood like a warrior goddess, small compared to the nightmares surrounding her but utterly unafraid. He had married her believing he would need to protect her. He had been wrong. She was protecting him. "I love you," he said. "I know." She smiled. "Now save the galaxy." Tejo ran. Hana and the remaining wardens followed. Behind them, Yuna's fire burned bright against the darkness. They reached the sensory node. It was a chamber of pulsing light, millions of nerves connecting to the vast consciousness of the Overmind. Tejo walked to the center and placed his hands on the organic surface, and then he opened his mind. The Overmind sensed him immediately. A tiny human, daring to touch the infinite. The hive consciousness rushed toward him like a wave of darkness, ready to absorb another insignificant life. But Tejo did not resist. He let the Overmind in, and then he showed it everything. He showed the Overmind the history of humanity. Not the sanitized version that other species knew, but the true story. The famines that killed millions. The wars that burned continents. The plagues that nearly ended the species. And through it all, humans, surviving, adapting, coming back stronger every single time. He showed the Overmind what humans did to their enemies. The weapons they built, the strategies they created. The pure, cold determination that drove them to victory against impossible odds. He showed cities built on the ashes of those who opposed them. He showed species that had been erased from history because they threatened what humans loved. He showed the Overmind the truth that humanity had hidden for so long. They were not prey. They were the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. They had simply been pretending otherwise. And then he gave the Overmind a choice. Leave, he said through the connection. Take your swarm and go to another galaxy. Find worlds that are not protected by humans, because if you stay here, if you continue to threaten what we love, we will hunt you, not for years, not for centuries, forever. Humans do not forget. We do not forgive. We do not stop. You have lived for millions of years because you never encountered something that could match your determination. Now you have, so choose. Leave and survive, or stay and discover what it means to be prey. The Overmind saw the truth in his mind. It saw the cold fire of human determination. It saw billions of years of survival against impossible odds. It saw a species that had clawed its way out of extinction again and again and again. And for the first time in its ancient existence, the Overmind felt fear. Not of dying. It had faced death before. Fear of something worse. Fear of an enemy that would never stop. Fear of becoming the hunted instead of the hunter. The swarm withdrew. Across the galaxy, millions of bioships turned away from their feeding grounds. They gathered around the Overmind like children around a mother and began to move toward the edge of known space. The hive mind sent out one final message before it vanished into the darkness between galaxies. We will remember you, it said. Good, Tejo replied. That was the point. The war was over. Yuna found him at the sensory node, collapsed on the organic floor. His body was exhausted, his mind drained from the effort of facing an ancient god. But he was alive. Did it work? She asked, kneeling beside him. He looked up at her and smiled. His gentle smile. His real smile. They are leaving, he said. They chose to run. Yuna pulled him into her arms and held him tight. Around them, the Overmind's body was already beginning to drift away, following its retreating fleet. The nightmare was ending. Weeks later, Yuna stood before the Valorian court. Her husband stood beside her, no longer hiding, no longer pretending to be ordinary. The generals who had once mocked him now bowed their heads in respect. The war is over, Yuna announced. The swarm has fled. And we owe our survival to humanity. The court was silent. Every Valorian present had watched the reports. They had seen what humans could do. They understood now that the small, soft species they had dismissed for so long was something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. After the ceremonies, Yuna found Tejo in his garden. He was planting new seeds, his hands covered in soil from earth. What happens now? She asked. I keep gardening, he said. I keep cooking terrible food. I keep loving you. But everyone knows what humans really are now. The secret is out. Tejo looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, the swarm was fleeing to distant galaxies. Somewhere out there, other species were reading reports about what humans had done and adjusting their opinions accordingly. Good, he said. Maybe now they will stop underestimating us. Maybe now they will understand that we are not here to conquer or dominate. We just want to live in peace with those we love, and we will do anything to protect that peace. He turned to look at his wife, the alien empress who had married a human translator, and discovered she had married something far more powerful. The galaxy knows what we are now, he said, but they also know what we fight for. Not conquest, not glory, just love. He touched her face gently. That is humanity's greatest strength. That is what makes us dangerous. We love too deeply to ever give up, and we fight too hard to ever lose. Yuna leaned into his touch. She had married a monster hiding behind a gentle smile. She had married a predator disguised as prey. She had married a human, and she would spend the rest of her life grateful for that choice. Outside the window, the stars burned bright. The galaxy would never see humans the same way again. The secret was out. The mask was off. And everyone knew what had been hiding among them all along. But Tejo simply returned to his flowers, humming quietly as he worked. The most dangerous being in the galaxy, planting seeds and dreaming of beauty, because that was what humans did. They destroyed their enemies, and then they built gardens on the graves. They burned worlds, and then they planted flowers in the ashes. They were monsters and poets, killers and dreamers, warriors and lovers. They were human, and the universe would never forget it.